This video is brought to you by Squarespace. What's up everybody and welcome to my review of a new thriller called Locked. And this is an English language remake of an Argentinian 2019 film called 4x4. And it basically follows one character played by Bill Skarsgård who is down on his luck. He's got major financial issues. And so he tries to break in and carjack this very expensive looking vehicle, only to find out that he is now locked inside of it and stuck playing this psychotic game hosted by Anthony Hopkins. I walked into this movie with pretty much no expectations whatsoever. I had only seen the poster and I had seen the actors involved with it, kind of gathered a little bit of an idea what it's probably about based off of the poster as well as the title, but never watched the trailer. And I was really only interested in this primarily because I've become a really huge fan of Bill Skarsgård. And of course, when you throw a titan like Anthony Hopkins on the poster, I'm instantly more interested. But movies of this type, where you have an actor who's on screen pretty much by themselves for the majority or even the entirety of the runtime, a very closed setting with not a whole lot of variety of what we're seeing, those types of movies I tend to file into the appreciate more than I enjoy category, whether you're talking about things like 127 Hours or Buried. I always end up appreciating some of what's going on, appreciating the small scale ambition of trying to tell a story without a whole lot to interact with. Certainly the lead actor's performance more times than not is impressive, but I've never seen a movie like this that I've ever had the desire to go back to a second time. And honestly, that was the only hesitation or fear that I had, was that this was likely going to be a movie of that type that's probably going to be filed right alongside the others. But I was able to get a hold of an early screener, so I definitely wanted to sit down and check it out. It comes out in theaters on the 21st of March, which is this Friday. It might actually be the day that you're watching this review, depending on how my schedule goes. But did Locked deliver? Was it all thrills, or did I feel locked in the theater? Or more specifically, my office? But you know, if you ever do find yourself locked into a high-tech vehicle, it's a great time to build your own website. Whether you're a content creator, an entrepreneur, or just somebody who wants to share their creativity with the world, having your own website is absolutely crucial. But when it comes to actually building your own website, even somebody like me who has extensive computer knowledge, I wouldn't even know where to begin. Well, Squarespace is the all-in-one website platform for creatives and entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. And Squarespace's new design intelligence empowers anyone to create a beautiful personalized website that is tailored to your exact needs. With their Blueprint AI, you can answer a few questions about your brand and have a fully custom template to interact with and fine-tune to your liking. They even allow you to easily sell access to content like blogs, online courses, or videos. And by using Squarespace Payments, you can manage your payments all in one place and give your customers all their favorite ways to pay, such as Klarna, Apple Pay, and even ACH direct deposit. So if you're ready to kickstart your online presence, head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Cody Leach to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain using code Cody Leach. And thank you so much to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. Starting off with the positives, as I suspected, the main thing that I appreciate from this film is the performances. And we got a lot more Anthony Hopkins than I expected, so we're going to talk about both of the leads here. But Bill Skarsgård, man, that guy is just unbelievably talented. He can play so many different types of roles, whether he's going super animated with something like Pennywise, or getting ultra method with something like Nosferatu, or even just playing a regular Joe like he did in Barbarian. I have not seen a single movie with this guy, maybe with the exception of The Crow, but I don't blame him for that, where he is not one of these standouts of the film. And what I really liked about his performance in this movie is that he's forced to go in a lot of different ways. He's forced to be funny. The first part of the movie, he's kind of a bit of a dumbass, which was really entertaining. Somebody who you could see why he's kind of on the lower end of life and why he hasn't had a whole lot of success. His problem-solving skills aren't so great in the first act of the film, and it leads to some pretty good physical comedy in there, but also his rage as he starts to get more and more infuriated with the situation and more infuriated with Anthony Hopkins, his captor, and the emotions that come out by the halfway point of the film through to the end in regard to him kind of starting to accept his fate and thinking that maybe he's not going to get out of this, longing for his daughter, and kind of repenting to a certain degree to try to appeal to what Anthony Hopkins, at least what he believes that he wants. He's got a lot of range with what he has to go through in this performance. And I just think that he's fucking awesome. Like, this guy is, it's no question why he's getting all these crazy opportunities ever since he totally proved himself in the It movies, because he is just unbelievable. So he's the shining star here, as I expected him to be. But Anthony Hopkins, for a role that I almost half expected was maybe going to be phoned in, no pun intended, because the majority of the film is just his voice on the little telephone app in the middle of this car. And I expected that was probably the majority, if not the entirety of what we were going to get from him. And the first act or so, I was like, okay, I mean, it's Anthony Hopkins. He's got some charisma there, but nothing extremely stand out about what he's doing as this antagonist. But as the film goes on, I actually think he has a lot of maniacal fun with what is going on here. Now, of course, it's Hannibal Lecter. We all know he can deliver a maniacal performance, but it's different when you're doing things on screen and you're, sucking your teeth and everything like that versus having to convey all of that with just your voice. And as the movie goes on, as you start to get more into the motivations of his character and how sick and twisted and psychopathic he really is, and especially through where things go in the third act of the film, I was really impressed with what he was doing. It looked like he was having a blast. It looked like he really enjoyed being able to kind of cut his teeth once again with a character like this, and he just plays really good villains. So both of your names that are on the poster are the reason to check this out, and both of them give it their all. They were both awesome. I also really enjoyed some of the creativity and the innovation in regard to this setting that they're creating. Like, as I said before, there's plenty of examples out there of somebody in peril, stuck in a small situation, a small setting, and we're just watching them go through this journey throughout the runtime of the film. But what's different about this one is that he's locked into this super high-tech car that Anthony Hopkins has rigged with cameras and electrical current and these little trap doors to get food and get water. And it's very much a game, not on the sadistic level of something like Saw, but much more of a mental game that he's playing with them. And I just think they had a lot of fun, and they really did utilize that small setting to its fullest potential. And so for something that could very easily get boring, and I'll have a little bit more to say with that in the negatives, they do enough to kind of change up what's going on inside of this car and outside of the car to keep things fresh and interesting for a 90-minute runtime. And for a movie like this that's definitely trying to play in a very grounded setting, despite maybe the car being slightly over the top with how high-tech it is, I think they do a pretty good job with setting forward a series of events that Bill Skarsgård is essentially trying to do everything he can to escape this car. At first, like I already said, you do get some good comedy out of him just giving like these knee-jerk reactions and not really stopping to think and getting himself into a bit of trouble in the opening act. But as the movie goes on, the things that he tries to do, the little plans that he tries to enact, all the different devices that he is trying to utilize inside of this car to find any way to escape or to thwart the plans of Anthony Hopkins, I thought they did a good job at making things grounded enough where it didn't seem like they lost the plot or that they lost the grounded sense of the movie, while being very realistic as far as how somebody would think if they had any knowledge of how cars work whatsoever and they're actually stuck inside of one. This is not the type of film that I would throw out the word carnage candy to describe in any shape or form, but there is a little sequence in the middle act of this film where you do get some pretty decent gore that comes out of nowhere. So it's shocking just because we don't have any hints that the movie has anything like that in store. So that certainly kind of woke me up, for lack of a better term, in the middle of the film, just as it was starting to hit a point where it was feeling like it was running out of gas. Again, no pun intended. I'm surprised I haven't had 12 of those by now. You get a little bit of carnage candy in here it was nice. It was nice for us horror fans to be like, ooh, nice little surprise here. And the last thing that I'll say in the positives is that while some commentary in this movie doesn't work as well, we'll get into that in a second, one thing that I thought did pay off pretty well is more specific to Bill Skarsgård's actual character arc and what this game is essentially going to teach him. And that's more so of him rising to his potential, him trying to better his life, him trying to dig himself out of the trenches. And I think that's a pretty universal theme that a lot of us can get behind. Whether you're successful or unsuccessful professionally, your personal life, whatever, there's always a point that we all hit where it kind of feels like you're stuck. It feels like life has put you there. You can't dig yourself out. And so I enjoyed that theme being explored, and I think they did it pretty well with his character. Moving on to the negatives, this is absolutely, as I expected, a movie that I would never watch a second time. These experiences are like the definition of one and done for me. I think that it's very deliberately paced. I think that it's not necessarily a whole lot of twists or surprises or anything to merit you going back and trying to re-experience some kind of a cool reveal. It's a very straightforward story. And that's going to really hurt it for a lot of people, I think, because I am one of those people that rewatch value plays a lot into how I rate a film. I will rate something that I can see myself rewatching once a year for the rest of my life, much higher than a movie that may be better made, but I'll never watch again. just the way that my brain works. And Locked is one of those films where I've gotten what I need out of Locked. I've gotten what they intended, and there's really nothing to go back for. And part of the reason why I say that is because this movie absolutely has a lull in it, and it's very early on. Once you get the first 15 minutes of the film out of the way, and you're now got the setup, you're in this situation, and now it's off to the races, it really takes about a half an hour after the first, maybe halfway through the first act, through the halfway to the second act, for things to really kick into high gear. It's really just him stuck in this one situation. You don't get as animated of an Anthony Hopkins yet. The situation isn't as dire or as dynamic or as tension-filled yet. And so it's just him stuck in a car and trying to get water, and him yelling at people outside of the car who can't hear him, and getting shocked every time he tells Anthony Hopkins to go fuck himself. And it's just kind of wash, rinse, repeat for about 20 minutes, to where I literally felt like, okay, we're probably heading into the climax of the film now, right? And I moved my mouse over, and I was only 30 minutes into the film, and I went, oh my God, please tell me things get better. They do. Luckily, they do. Otherwise, this would have been a much more negative review. But it's a film that takes its time getting to where it's going. And the other big issue here is that the movie tries to do way too much commentary. I think what they did with Bill Skarsgård's character arc was done pretty well. Everything else that they're exploring here in regard to classism and the injustices of the rich versus the poor, and how the poor affect the rich, and all of that, it's so on the nose that it literally feels like Anthony Hopkins' character is busting you over your cranium with a fucking sledgehammer every time he talks about it. And none of it really comes to any kind of satisfying conclusion or any kind of fruition that feels like it's merited. It feels more like it's stuff that they put in there to kind of fluff out the runtime and pad things out so they can take what was probably a pretty solid hour-long concept into a feature-length 90-minute-long concept. So every single time the movie pauses to talk about the lower class versus the upper class and everything, it just feels like rambling. It really went nowhere for me. But overall, guys, for somebody who is never really overly enamored with movies like this, I had a pretty solid time with this one. I don't necessarily think it's a rush out to theaters type of experience, but if you like these types of movies, like 127 Hours, like Buried, and these two actors catch your interest, check it out whenever it comes onto streaming. It's a solid thrill ride that you should experience for the performances alone if you're a fan of Bill or Anthony. Well, that's it for this one, guys. Be sure to check out Squarespace down in the video description below. If you enjoyed that, click over here for all of my 2025 new release reviews. I'm also going to put my playlist up here of my South by Southwest coverage. I'll have a ranking coming out tomorrow of all 24 films that I saw at the festival. Like, share, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss everything in the future. And as always, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean you have to be.